everybody. Welcome to the Metro Council's Government Operations and Regulations Committee. This is Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. I am detecting a quorum with myself, Councilmember Eastlick, Councilmember Hill, Councilmember Nash, Wiener, and Stiles, and Benton. We had nobody sign up for the public comment period, so we will move on to the second page of our agenda. We've got RS 2024-292 by Parker, exempts Brassfield's provisions located at 341 Douglas Avenue, Unit 101 from the minimum distance requirement for obtaining a beer permit pursuant to Section 7.08.090.e of the Metropolitan Code. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. I'll go ahead and open the floor to the sponsor.
Thank you, Chair. So this is for Brassfield's Provisions. It's a new neighborhood scale grocery store there at the corner of Douglas and Lichy. And it is a residential area, but I haven't gotten any complaints or concerns about this request. So I would ask you all to please approve.
All right. Any questions or comments from the committee? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? And that would be 7 in favor, none against. All right, the next few are Councilmember Taylor regarding short-term rentals. We have RS 2024-293, 294, 295, 296, and they exempt 1008, 1010, 1012, 1014, 20th Avenue North from the minimum distance requirement for obtaining a short-term rental property non-owner occupied permit pursuant to the Metropolitan Code of Laws, Section 6.28.030 B2D. Do we have a motion on those?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on these? Councilmember Wiener.
Can I ask the nature from codes of this, or Hannah from?
I believe this is, I think it's within 100 feet of a park. I believe it's Hadley Park. Could be wrong on that. But I think that these are by kind of the interstate on one side and a park on another.
So given that the sponsor is in here, is there a letter?
Well, so let me see if I can pop out. So Council Lady Toombs had signed on to these in case he couldn't be here. And I think she's in the Rules Committee. So let me run out and see if I can.
Okay, I'll go ahead and roll these. All right, so we'll move that to the heel. Move on to Resolution 2024-288, Gamble, Johnson, Druff, and others. This is a resolution requesting Metro Planning Department, Metro Department Codes and Building Safety, Historic Preservation Offices, Metro Water, and NDOT to conduct the necessary recommended changes to the Metropolitan Code of Laws that would increase allowable density in Nashville and Davidson County and make recommendations regarding land use policy which incorporates affordable and workforce housing strategies that can be supported by existing and planned infrastructure. Do I have a motion on the bill?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right, I notice that there is an amendment on this. I will go ahead and get a motion for the amendment.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, and the amendment sponsor is here. If you want to go ahead and explain your amendment.
Thank you, Chair. So if I could give a brief explanation of the resolution and why, and the reason for the amendment. Cool. So this resolution is for the Planning Department, Metro Water, and other multiple Metro departments to do a study for housing density throughout the county and what could be done, especially that already aligns with what is in Nashville next. So middle density housing, for instance, within half a mile of our pikes is in Nashville next. And so what this resolution does is it will provide a study to see how we can create more affordable housing stock, where and how throughout the county. What my amendment done, the original resolution has a due date for that report or that analysis to be completed and provided to council by August 1st. My amendment moves that date up by 4 months to March 31st. I have gotten approval from the Planning Department, from Metro Water, and from NDOT that they can meet either that deadline, or if they need to extend, my amendment allows an automatic 90-day extension with notice to the council on March 1st. So the Planning Department would head up that notice. They'd get us a letter that they need the additional 90 days, but we would still, at worst case, we would get that analysis back at least 30 days prior to the date in the original resolution. It's a friendly amendment. The resolution sponsor has signed on, as has Councilmember Evan Siegel, and so with that, I would seek your approval.
All right, any questions or discussion from the committee? Councilmember Nash.
Which is, from the caption, it speaks about density. It doesn't say anything about affordability. And they're not necessarily the same, in my opinion. Question about affordable?
So that was my explanation that I just gave was in regards to that. For instance, in District 7, we've seen housing prices increase in the past 4 years by 81%, while we haven't grown density. If we grow density, my belief is what we'll see in that analysis, it's an analysis yet to be determined, I believe we'll see that it will result in additional housing density being provided such that home values might not increase as rapidly as they have, such that they can remain more affordable. People in District 7 are unable to, get access to the market. The numbers came out just this week that home values in Davidson County have increased by 42% in the past, since 2020. I mean, it's, the additional housing
I live here
should-
too.
Yeah, exactly.
I get
The
you.
additional housing density should deliver a lower priced product, or at least less, not necessarily a lower price, but less rapid growth in value.
Councilmember Weiner.
So I can speak to your question because I'm one of the sponsors of this bill and helped write it. Essentially, this resolution was written to put a system in place so that before we scare the fire out of our constituents, we have studies that speak to what it is that we need to know before we start moving things of this magnitude forward. And so, in a nutshell, that's what it's doing. I love the fact that we've been able to get, some common thought in it, which is great. My only concern is, and I'm going to draw on some of my experience with the Fair Board, in that we asked for studies with regard to the Bristol proposal, and we asked for them by date certain, and then we gave them an extension of 90 days, and then we didn't get anything. And so when we've got some of these studies that are being done by a third party, we can't always control that narrative of the end date and the delivery date. So part of me, I love it. Part of me is concerned that if we give one 90-day extension, that may be insufficient if we have something of this scope, because I know right now there are multiple studies that are being undertaken right now in different cohorts. And so that's my concern.
So I've actually got buy-in from Director Kemp, from Director Alarcon, and from Director Potter. I've spoken at length with all three of them that they believe this timeline can be met. It's all being done in-house. None of it's being outsourced, so we're not dependent on an outside contractor getting the information back to us. The first step will be planning to put together their study. It will include community engagement, as I understand it. And then NDOT is going to be working on some projects along the way, in particular regarding TOD. So transit-oriented development. So that's going to tie in nicely with this as the study's being done. And then Metro Water will do their analysis, which is really the reason probably for the 90-day extension, is that Metro Water can't get to work on their part until planning has done their part. So, but I have spoken extensively with all three of those directors, and they're comfortable with this timeline.
All right, any other questions or discussions? All right, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Any against? All right, we adopt the amendment. And the bill as amended, any discussions or questions? Feel like we've already had that discussion, so all those in favor of the resolution as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? All right.
Thank you.
All right, we will head back to Councilmember Taylor's bills. I've already read the captions. We've already had a motion and seconded, so Councilmember Taylor, you want to speak on your 4 bills?
Yeah. So thank you. So there's a waiver for distance to Hadley Park. These are units that are built right beside the interstate, right across the street from Hadley Park and across a 5-lane highway or 5-lane road. So I feel pretty comfortable with the distance waiver, being that the park is Hadley Park, and it's to the edge of Hadley Park where the signage is, not necessarily where we're going to have families and children in the park. So it's a pretty simple piece of legislation, I think. So hopefully you guys can go ahead and approve it, and then we'll approve it later tonight.
I'll just go ahead and state for the record on these, we've had these conversations about affordable housing and housing stock, and, ever since I've been elected, I've pretty much been determined to see fewer and fewer short-term rentals, especially non-owner operated. And so I do kind of take pause that, we're removing housing stock that could go to long-term residents in exchange for non-owner occupied. So I will be voting no on this. I'm not going to try to convince anybody else to vote no, but when we're facing lack of inventory and affordability, having basically investment properties popping up, I can't support that. Councilmember Weiner.
So my question would be, the folks that are developing these properties, was that expressed as an option for them
So when this was,
insofar as the zoning is concerned?
when they started developing these properties or kind of got the rezone, I wasn't in office, and it was a conversation that they had with the previous council member. And then when I got in office, they didn't start necessarily putting shovels in the ground until later. And now it's come to this point where they've built the product, and long conversations. I was a co-sponsor of the bill that put this in place that doesn't allow short-term rentals in this space. But with this one, there's been a few like secondary schools, so I have the universities in my district where we have this, and they've kind of removed that. With Hadley Park, this goes to the line, which is, when I think about it, I think it's with this particular property, it's a bit unfair because we're looking at the line where we're not necessarily having a park. We have to go across a parking lot and a few other areas to where we actually start the park, where people actually are within the park. And so when I look at the nature of this, when we say park or school or different things of that nature, with Hadley Park per se, this is just several feet away from where any of the activity happens in the park, so I feel comfortable with this. And again, the other part, I said that it was right next to interstate. It's literally right on top of I-40, and I feel comfortable with, again, it being right on top of I-40, with this being short-term rentals, to be there. The zoning was changed, again, prior to me being in office, to being a property that would be able to have no owner occupied short-term rentals, prior to us then being able to putting the distance waivers in with parks, churches, schools, etc. So.
All right, any other questions or comments on this one?
I haven't.
Okay.
What's the noise factor over there? Like, would a family move in there with kids, given the level of noise from the interstate?
That's I'm not really going to talk. We had families living there once before, and their houses were torn down because of the interstate. So, speed bump past that. So I do want to just highlight that for us historically. So there's going to be noise there. It's the only interstate system in the city of Nashville that doesn't have a wall barrier. I mean, there's a whole bunch of factors beyond noise. From the noise of a tenant per se, where this is situated necessarily in that community or in this area, it's an area that would only, like this property would only be beneficial to have multifamily units on this property. It was a property that isn't necessarily wanted or warranted for a single-family dwelling or neighborhood-style dwelling, even though it's within a neighborhood. It's a weird little triangle parcel that would be probably a neat little neighborhood parcel if we didn't put an interstate right in the middle of it, but unfortunately we don't, so we have an interstate right beside a parcel that I don't see that would be used for family-style housing. I mean, but I'm not, and I can't determine what family-style housing is. I mean, anything can be family-style housing. But this would be multi-housing for the most part that should be there, that is probably the most appropriate use for this parcel. I think this is the best use that the parcel could see, unless it, I mean, I don't think any other commercial properties could go there, any retail or different things of that nature, due to, just the lack of infrastructure for parking or travel or whatnot. So the best thing that I think we could put here is multifamily, and I feel comfortable again with the multifamily. And not all of the units are going to be single or short-term rentals. There's about, if I'm not mistaken, maybe anywhere from 12 to 14 total units in the property, and these are asking for the short-term rentals.
What are these valued at?
I have no idea. I would ask a realtor to help us with that question.
Any other questions on this one or discussion? All right, we'll go ahead and take a vote on all these together. All those in favor, raise your hand. All right, so it'll be 7 in favor, 1 against on all these.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right, this brings us to
We did it all out. They mine's next, you know.
Resolution 2024-303, Porterfield and Bradford. This approves a sole source contract between the Metropolitan Government and KCI Technologies, Inc. To provide consulting, development, implementation, and managed services for CAL-related suite of application replacements for end-of-life version of CityWorks, Hanson, e-permits, e-plans, land management, and various other similar departments. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and go ahead.
Okay, so this is a vendor we have been using. We actually signed the contract 5 years ago. We actually went in through an RFP and actually started using them just a little over a year ago. And we are in the middle of implementing this huge enterprise-wide systems for codes, NDOT, water services, Parks and Rec. And they already have the vested knowledge of doing so. So it only made sense to try this instead of going out for another RFP this soon.
Any questions or discussions on this one? All right, those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? All right, moving on, RS 2024-304 approves amendment number 1 to the sole source contract between the Metropolitan Government and Organo LLC to reflect scope of work changes and increase the value of the contract. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. I do believe we have someone here to speak on this one. I know there were some questions that were brought up about some of the language in the amendment, and if you want to go ahead and speak on the bill and then talk about the controversy.
I'm not sure that I'm aware of the.
I believe this was one that has part of it is it's applying to the state law about no boycotts of Israel.
Actually, that was city.
I'm happy to speak to the boycott language.
Yeah, that was 303. I think it's over $250,000.
$250,000.
Yeah, is this one over 250?
Yeah, this is an amendment to a sole source contract.
Amendment to the force, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, okay, so this has been happening a lot. There was I think it was in 2022 or maybe 2023 that the state legislature passed a law that stated that contracts over $250,000, of which this is one, have to have a provision prohibiting the contractor from engaging in a boycott of Israel for the duration of the contract. That's state law. We've had to add this to a lot of contracts recently. Basically, any contract that we're amending right now that's over $250,000, this provision is being added. And it's just to comply with the state law. We have to have it in there.
Okay, I'm sorry, could you repeat it?
Repeat what the
state law is?
So the state law is that every contract over, I think it's $250,000, has to have a provision that says that the contractor will not engage in a boycott of Israel for the duration of the contract.
Okay,
If we don't have that provision,
That
the
doesn't
contract
mean-
is void.
got it, okay.
Okay.
But that doesn't bar that company from doing business with someone in Israel.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got
it's
it.
just
Okay.
they can't boycott Israel.
Okay.
Okay. Want to go and speak on the bill as it is?
Yeah, there was two purposes in this amendment to the contract. There was a name change from CSS International to Argano LLC, and that was done with the what's that called? The assignment consent, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
Assignment consent. So that was done kind of as a predecessor task to the actual amendment. And then the other part of the amendment was to increase the max value of the contract from, it was originally 35 million, and it increased it 43 million to 78 million. And then there were some new products and services based on they support Oracle products and services. So we've had new systems that we're either implementing now or about to implement as part of the capital spending plan approval for finance. And then there were some of these clauses that procurement had to add just because, if they went in effect since this original contract, which was 2022, it was early 2022. So some of these clauses, like this boycott thing that, came in effect afterwards, they got added in as part of this process. But basically, when I did the projections on what the max value was going to be for this 10-year contract back in 2021, when I was doing my first analysis, I had built in that we would, maybe upgrade our enterprise-wide system, but I didn't anticipate that we would move it from the e-business suite to Oracle Cloud. But as a result of a business review and kind of a process review that our major stakeholders, departments requested, they did an analysis and assessment, and at the end of it, we did an RFI to the marketplace, and the decision by the steering committee was unanimously that they wanted to move to Oracle Cloud to address some gaps that the older on-prem software couldn't provide for them, and get to the kind of the latest, and also a big thing is that after we're live, in our first kind of full year after we're live, we're actually going to have a pretty significant savings because we're replacing a separate time and attendance system in Chronos. We're replacing PeopleSoft for a pension calculation system, and we're replacing Taleo for schools for recruiting. So it's a large investment, but we're going to actually be able to pay it back in about 5 years. But because of that major project, and the project itself is a $35 million total over 2-year CSP. And Argano is the prime implementer, and so I just didn't have enough max value to cover that project, and I just went back in and reprojected everything. Plus, I had 2 years of actuals now, and then I had this project that dumped in the middle of it that I had to project out. So that's the reason for this amendment, and that's why it's so large.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions on this one?
I do. So can you explain the savings, how that was calculated?
So
In broad terms.
In broad terms,
Yeah.
so what I did is, I don't know if when the CSP was brought to the council, I know that the finance director and Keith Durbin, my boss, and some others, we did a presentation about what this project was, just so nobody was surprised when when it came up, and so part of that was kind of going through what the project was, what the costs were, and then benefits and savings. And so what we did was we looked at everything we do today, and for reference, today we have our enterprise-wide system is hosted. It's an on-prem system, but it's hosted through Oracle. So we have Oracle hosting costs for both the enterprise-wide system and also for PeopleSoft. So what I did is I kind of took a snapshot of here's what we're paying today in, license, support, hosting, kind of all the different categories, and then here's what we're going to pay after we're fully live. And so, the hosting with Oracle, which is not insignificant, goes away completely. These other systems that we're going to be replaced, like Kronos. And Kronos, we have both software and license and hosting of Kronos, so that all goes away. And then, PeopleSoft, again, hosting and license and support. And Taleo, same thing. And some of those had specialized kind of managed services support to help with, like, PeopleSoft. And Power Youth is also one that uses Taleo, and they're coming on board with the new system too. So it was just kind of taking, kind of before and after picture, and the subscription cost of Oracle Cloud, of course, that's an increase, but you have all these other decreases that that net out to I think it was like 4.7 million annual savings after we're completely live and post go live. So.
And just one more. So the Argonaut, they are not known, correct me if I'm right, to have issues like Kronos did with the payroll outage?
No. Okay. Kronos. Kronos is a completely separate vendor. Argonaut is actually the vendor partner implementer.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, Kronos had the ransomware. They actually had a ransomware attack. That's what caused the a month and a half outage like 2 years ago.
Got it. Okay. Cool.
All right, any other discussions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passed 8-0, and we are done.